We those people who are so grateful to God and the founding of our nation in order to secure and transmit to succeeding generations our heritage of political, civil, and religious liberty within the Union of States, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the state of Alaska. Welcome to Alaska Matters Radio. I'm Christopher Story, along with David Webb, who's engineering and producing this program. You've tuned into one full hour of great adventures in the last frontier. Today is, of course, the first day of the 2014 session in Juneau. Your legislature is convening, as it were, in Juneau to determine your future. It's important to pay attention to it. We'll be following along with all of the bills and the proposals and everything being moved through Juneau. We'll be following along this year. Thought we'd take this time to bring you a little bit of a constitutional moment, brought to you by Anchor River Inn, your home for all things, liberty lovers out there in Anchor Point. Gotta love those folks. AnchorRiverInn.com is the home of the Anchor Cam. You can go out there and look at the Anchor River at any given day. You can go right now, AnchorRiverInn.com, and check out what's happening on world-famous Anchor River. So, Article 1, Declaration of Rights. That's the Constitution of Alaska. Article 1 is the Declaration, your Declaration of Rights. Due process. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. I'd like every single legislature to remember that. Every senator and every congressperson, and, in fact, their staffers and lobbyists. We do have a constitutional protection in the state of Alaska under the flag of the United States Constitution for due process, that no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property. Property is key here. Obviously life, obviously liberty. People don't seem to argue about those two things too much. It's when it comes to property. And that property is your monetary property and your physical property, your real property. So no. Do not take them without due process of law. And eminent domain is very specifically discussed in your Declaration of Rights here in Alaska. Eminent domain. Private property shall not be taken or damaged for use, for public use, without just compensation. Just. That means fair. It isn't whatever I want. It's what's fair. What's derived as fair market for the taking of my property. So we're going to follow, actually, eminent domain, because I believe that eminent domain is used more often than you would know, simply for the fact that it comes under a different name, and that is public use. The collective rights to salmon and habitat, which happens to be abutting your private property. The collective rights to this, that, or the other must never come before the private, because without private, look what you have in China. Look at what you have in all the communist states around the world that don't honor the private property rights, don't honor the individual. You end up with a big mess. So I'm hoping that the legislature this session in 2014 will honor, respect, and obey the Constitution of Alaska, in addition, of course, to the Constitution of the United States. But these two points really ought to be paid very close attention to whenever discussing anything in Juneau. I just hope that we can just drive that point home. Again, here on Alaska Matters Radio, we'll be following the entire session and keeping you as much in the loop as we possibly can, and that means myself as well. I want to thank Anchor River Inn. They're going to help us follow along in Juneau this entire session. So thank you, Anchor River Inn, Jesse Klutz and family. Anchor River Inn is the heartbeat of Anchor Point, which, as you know, Anchor Point, Alaska is really the bastion of all things freedom. It's true. Speaking of Alaska, let's look at Alaska in numbers. You've probably heard this already. 2012 results are in. There's 731,000 of us up here. 731,000. Those of us that like getting larger dividend checks, this kind of rubs me raw. Why can't we go back to 1970 levels? 302,000. 302,000 in 1970. 1980, 401,000 folks up here in Alaska. 1990, 553. 2000, 627 had migrated here already. And by the year 2010, 713. See, I didn't realize that. I've been actually saying 650,000 for the longest time. And I didn't realize that, in fact, already in the 2010 census, it was known that we were over 700,000. I didn't know that. The news to me. Well, now we're up to 731,000 449 Alaskans. So back to Juneau, eyes in Juneau for just a moment. We have two budgets. You already know this, but let's talk about it for a minute because this is a lot of money. Two budgets come out of Juneau. The operating budget, which is proposed $9.2 billion, that's what funds the operations of state agencies, etc., what it costs to do business in the state of Alaska for the state. And then there's the capital budget. That's the wish list. $2.5 billion is what's projected. Oh, this is your new soccer field, your track, your school roof, your fire trucks. Here in Homer, there's a discussion to dip into that monies and build a safety building. Get $15+ million for safety buildings. It's a lot of money. I mean, when you look at it per capita, it's a huge, huge amount of money. And I think what we ought to do is really pay attention to where the money's going and who's earmarking it and for what purpose, and not just presume that it's all going to be spent wisely. I think that's the case because we send our neighbors, we send our friends, we send our family members to Juneau to represent us. And I trust our representation. I really do. But I don't want to lose sight of it just because, well, it's a $9.2 billion budget. There's nothing we can do about it. Maybe there is. We ought to pay close attention to where the money's going, how it's being spent, and to whom it's being allocated. It's important. It's a lot of money. Dude, see you in Sochi. Ryan Stassel, a.k.a. Razzle Dazzle Stassel. I could be butchering his name completely, but I wanted to bring this up for a couple of reasons. He's an Anchorage snowboarder. He got the call just a couple days ago to pack his bags. He's heading to the Olympics. He's an Anchorage snowboarder. Get that? Back in my day, snowboarders were kicked off of Mount Alyeska. You couldn't get onto Alyeska with a snowboard. In fact, one time I saw a guy being escorted down the mountain by ski patrol with a snowboard, and they treated him like he had a pound of crack cocaine on him. I mean, that's what a snowboard was equivalent to bringing crack up onto the mountain. It was a no-no. Get off the mountain. Now you go up to Alyeska, for example, and I could be wrong, but I think it's about 40-60. And I'm going to tell you in favor of snowboards. 40-60 in favor of snowboards. Anyway, I just want to shout out to Razzle Dazzle Stazzle. Great job. Do us proud in the Olympics. Just getting there, you've already done us proud. And secondly, kids, Alaska kids, pay attention. Anything is possible. Anything. So keep your reach beyond your grasp and live on purpose, like Ryan Stassel, the Razzle Dazzle Stassel. I mean, think about this, too. Ryan comes to us from, let me get some Blackwater Ben coffee. Oh, that's good coffee. Ryan is a hilltop boarder. So Hilltop in Anchorage, it's like going to the community golf course, right? I mean, that's not like the big expensive Carmel facility for golf equivalency, right? This is Hilltop's a nice little place, but its access is virtually unlimited. Everybody can go to Hilltop. It isn't exclusive. You don't have to have expensive condo at Alyeska. So money isn't the object here. This kid obviously was determined. So anyway, Alaska's proud of Ryan Stassel. Good for you. I took Tiffany to Hilltop one time, and we were young, very young. I was naive in the ways of what you don't do early in a marriage. I skied away from her. She fell coming off of the chairlift, and I skied away. And now, come on, I'm a gentleman. I was raised by gentlemen to be a gentleman. But I kind of just looked back over my left shoulder, and I realized that she had fallen. And I thought, well, she'll get up. And what I didn't realize was that it was a severe fall, such that her skis had literally come off. And I mean, how do you do that coming off the chair? That's a different discussion. Anyway, so they'd actually had to stop the lift, and the hippie had come out of the control booth, and the ski bum. And he's like, hey, come on. And anyway, so he was helping her. Everybody else is stopped on the chair. I mean, I learned a big lesson there. I learned quite a few lessons. Hilltop. Thank you, Hilltop. Hey, I'm Christopher Story. We've got your Blackwater Bend Espresso Mind Bender coming up. We've got all kinds of Alaska news. We're going to explore the left wing, the right wing, and it's, my friends, the same ugly bird. And Anchor Point Natural Foods brings us the third alternative. That's right. Today's program really is solution-oriented. Find out how I mean that here on Alaska Matters Radio.
It was 1989, my thoughts were short, my hair was long, caught somewhere between a boy and man.
That brings back memories, except for the long hair part. Never did have long hair, but my shorts were, my thoughts were short, and I had the long. I actually pioneered. By the way, you're listening to Alaska Matters Radio. I'm Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures in the Last Frontier. I pioneered in this state, and I'm not sure that that's something that I ought to be bragging about, but you're a friend, so I can tell you. The Bermuda shorts. Literally the first person. You know what? You have proof to show otherwise. 1986, I ordered what I believe to be the first pair of Bermuda shorts worn in Alaska. They were bright blue with yellow. I'm not doing my dad proud right now, by the way. Bright blue with yellow and some other variations of colors on. Anyway, I don't even know why I brought that up. The Readout Reporter had a great story, and this is about a dog. And so I've got actually two stories to talk to you about today about dogs. And I guess dogs are on my mind a lot lately because in my household right now I have two. So I have my Cooper, my Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, the best breed ever, by the way, ever. And I have my father-in-law's dog, which is a Dachshund. I grew up admiring Dachshunds. And in Alaska, as you know, a Dachshund in Alaska, not always the best mix. They don't appreciate it very much. Their legs are about 1.5 inches long, and it makes for a very awkward bathroom break, if you will, outside. And a lot of times they choose to just not go outside. So anyway, but I've always loved and admired Dachshunds. So right now in my house, I have two of my favorite breeds. And so I ran across this story, and it's called The Story of Freedom in the Readout Reporter, which is an online blog of sorts in the Soldotna area. You guys up there in Soldotna and Kenai are probably more familiar than us here in the Southland of the Readout Reporter, but I'm beginning to actually find some of these stories pretty enjoyable. This one, I'd like to just say a shout-out and congratulations to a woman named Jill Garnett. She owns the Red Shed Racing Team. And so here's the story. This dog named Freedom is running around Soldotna for 2 years, homeless. And it had been a rescue dog from before that then ran away. His buddy Larry, or her buddy Larry, had been hit by a car. They'd both been rescued from the same hoarder's home. And then Larry gets hit by a car. Freedom is just gone, on the lam. So Freedom's gone for 2 years. And Jill, this is a quote from Jill. After spending so much time watching her and seeing her life, I saw one common thread. Most of what drove her, being Freedom, her daily routine was not food, but the collection of neighborhood dogs she had befriended. They really were what she was living for, she said. With a gaggle of happy huskies at home, I became convinced that she would do much more than survive, but actually thrive if I managed to get her home. That's Jill Garnett of Red Shed Racing. Congratulations to her and Freedom. There's pictures. If you go to the readoutreporter.com, you can read all about this and then see the pictures of this dog. And it's just a marvelous husky. A really, really terrific dog. And what a terrific person Jill Garnett is to spend all this time. And people had set up live cams, like motion sensor cams, and tried to take one of those, the big dip nets and help capture Freedom because she'd become pretty feral at this point. And now, thanks to Jill Garnett, she, Freedom, has an amazing home. Good for you, Jill. Good for Freedom. That's a neat story. Left wing, right wing, same ugly bird. I'm going to spend some time developing that thought, so I'm going to put that aside for a second. But let me just say, Lisa Murkowski, Mark Begich, and Don Young are all on my list. And it's not the Christmas list. Blackwater Bend Espresso brings you this portion of the program. When good won't do, get gourmet. Quality beans, that's job one. You got to start. It's like building a home. You don't take rotten wood and build a good home. You take the best wood you can get, the best quality lumber and materials, and then you mix it with really good skill, and that's what Pat does at Blackwater Bend Espresso. The baristas are extremely well trained, and you know what else? They're like a hotel chain. I think it was the Hilton or Holiday Inn. One of them said, they were asked in an interview, how do you train your people to be so friendly? And the manager said, or the CEO said, we don't. We hire friendly people. Wow, what a revelation. That's exactly what Pat has done at the Blackwater Bend Espresso. Everybody's friendly. They've got your back, and they know what coffee you want. If you're a regular, they know what you want before you even pull up. So make it your way out to Blackwater Bend Espresso. They're not your average drip. I want to send you out there for free. Here's how you do it. You just send me a text with your name and answer, 299-7653, 299-7653. Text only, please, and answer this question. What is the lowest temperature? I hope Al Gore is listening. I hope some, and I'm not sure that it really happens this way, but I hope that people are listening that aren't just in like mind, that are also, that I can challenge them a little bit. I'm talking about the global warming theorists, the global climate warming cooling change folk that, are constantly looking for one threat or another to limit your liberties and your freedoms, all the while ignoring the communist manifesto that is polluting and plaguing the earth. All the while we're being moved closer to that theory and theorem, which is failing around the world. That said, here's your question. I hope somebody, God, I hope an Al Gore compatriot's listening. What is the lowest temperature recorded in Alaska? What is the lowest temperature ever recorded in Alaska? Extra credit goes to somebody who knows when it was recorded. Was it A, minus 50 degrees, B, minus 80 degrees, or C, minus 100? 50, 80, or negative 100. Enter to win right now, 299-7653, 299-7653. Two of you are going to be going to Blackwater Bend Espresso for free. I have to throw a shout-out also to somebody who won last week. I got in the bevy of text messages I got, I lost one of last week's winners. If you were one of last week's winners and you didn't get your prize, your text said, "Hey, I'm out of town. How do I claim it?" And I don't remember who you were, but I want to be able to send you a bag of beans. But you also text 299-7653, 299-7653. We're going to talk about the left wing, the right wing, and the same ugly bird when we return here to Alaska Matters Radio. Such great music. Thank you, Mr. David Webb, engineering and producing this program. I'm Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures in the Last Frontier. You're listening to Alaska Matters Radio. Lots of answers coming in. Don't be afraid to text your answer and name now. 299-7653, Blackwater Bend Espresso. Question: what is the lowest temperature recorded in Alaska? Minus 50, minus 80, or minus 100. Now, some of you got the extra credit thing, went to your head. I can tell you were the type that sat in the front of the class. Teacher, Griffith chewing gum again. Teacher, Griffin, Dave Weber talking again. And your extra credit is wrong. Not all of you. I'm just saying a couple of you have answered and thrown in the extra credit of like when it was recorded, and you're wrong. And I'm not going to hold it against you. So the extra credit literally is pass-fail. And so it's just, please, I'm not trying to make this complicated. 299-7653, 299-7653. It's going to be difficult to choose a winner today. The text messages are coming in. Keep them coming. All right, left wing, right wing, same ugly bird. And I wish I could take credit for that. But it's actually, the credit goes to G. Edward Griffin. And he wrote a book called, well, he's written many books, but his most famous book is The Creature from Jekyll Island. A great book. It's good for two things. One, it's extremely enlightening on how the Federal Reserve works or doesn't work, and specifically the formation of the Federal Reserve, which is a private entity. But we think of it in terms of a public federal agency. It isn't. It's private. And anyway, it's a horrific read. I mean, it really is just, it's frightening. I have to put it down from time to time. I haven't quite finished it. I borrowed it from a listener. Actually got like 2, 3, 4 people in a row came to my office and said, "You've got to read this book. You've got to read this book." But this guy actually brought the book and said, "Here, take your time. It's going to take you a while," because I said it was good for two things. One, it's a super enlightening, educational, and informative. And two, it makes a handy weapon. It's that thick of a book. You literally could bludgeon someone to death with this book. And probably we could kill this ugly bird if we all knew what the contents were of the book. And so, again, left wing, right wing, same ugly bird. We're all watching political theater. And again, that comes to you from G. Edward Griffin, genius in my mind. So here's how it applies to what's happening in your state. From the Anchorage Daily News, this is an article written by Lisa Deemer. I'm going to go ahead and fancify it. Lisa Demuller writes, Senator Lisa Murkowski says that she won't insert herself into the Republican primary. That's when you think about, she totally lost the last Republican primary and then just ignored the results altogether. It's kind of ironic. Anyway, won't insert herself into the Republican primary race for Alaska's other U.S. Senate seat. But she wants This is you couldn't make this stuff up. Whoever wins to oust her colleague, Democratic incumbent Mark Begich. Okay, get that? She's not going to enter into the Republican primary debate. All right, fine, whatever. That's advice her dad gave her a long time ago. In fact, her dad even told Lisa Murkowski, "Oh, great, you're going to run for Senate here in Alaska. That's fine, but don't expect my support. I'm not going to support you unless you win the primary. So, anyways, I won't endorse you unless you win the primary. So there you go. She comes by it honestly. Let's put it that way. But here's where it gets really fun. She wants whoever wins the Republican primary to beat the snot out of Democratic incumbent Mark Begich. Big and rich. Baggage. He's got a lot of names, a lot of AKAs. Maybe Worldwide Wrestling would be up his alley if he loses. She told reporters in Anchorage on Monday that Begich was working on issues that matter to Alaska, but overall, it would be better for Republicans to win control of the Senate. For one thing, she'd become the chair of the Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources. She's now the ranking Republican. So, wait a minute. She wants him to lose, but says he's working hard on Alaska issues, but wants him to lose because it would be better for the Republican Party. In theory, one could read between the lines and say, hey, if we get Republican control over the Natural Resources and Energy Committee, oh, man, that's good stuff right there. It's, okay, fine. Alaska, when asked how Begich was doing, here's what Senator Lisa Murkowski said. As an Alaskan delegation, we've gotten to be working on these issues that are important to our constituents. Senator Begich has been keen in on the issues that I think Alaskans are worried about and doing what he's been tasked to do. What? That's left-wing, right-wing speak right there. On the one hand, she wants him ousted because it's better for her party, but by golly, Mark Begich is sure doing what Alaskans sent him to do. I'm sorry. I don't remember sending him to mandate that I buy a product called health insurance. I'm sorry. I don't remember sending him to Washington, D.C. to steer the greatest ship in the world into the biggest iceberg he could find, which is Obamacare. I don't remember anybody voting for him, and I'll bet you they would say the same thing, that said, gosh, I hope he goes back there and implements Obamacare fully. Now, here's where it gets even deeper. U.S. Representative Don Young last week said Begich was in a tough race in a conservative state, but also said that the Democrat was doing a good job in the Senate. Whoa, come on. Are you Don? Don Young, this is a special message to Don Young. Thank you for your service. Your consistency in running and campaigning has been appreciated. The pork that you've been able to fillet off of the federal pig and bring back to Alaska has been appreciated and used. I mean, $7 million runway to a village with 12 people. It's been advantageous. Thank you. But sir, with all due respect, and I'm not just speaking on behalf of the Hispanic Alaskan population, all due respect, sir, it's time to retire. Honest to God, it is time to send Don Young to be a consultant, a lobbyist. I don't know. It's time to do something different. If he can't distinguish between what is doing a good job and what is harming the country, if he can't determine the difference between the two, as a 40-some-odd-year Republican, conservative, using air quotes, he has no business. In other words, what we've learned today is that we have 2 Democratic senators and 1 Democratic representative in Washington, D.C. How do you think that makes me feel? Don Young, I'm very disappointed, sir. Very disappointed. I appreciate your service. I appreciate your service to this country. He's a military man. Teaching here in Alaska, I appreciate that. Stepping up time after time after time, every 2 years to rerun, okay, appreciate that. It's time to let go. And it's time for term limits. I had an amazing conversation with a gentleman yesterday, an extremely successful businessman. I mean, we're talking about success beyond the pale of what you'd expect in a small little town. We're talking about statewide endeavors that this individual takes on. And it's a legacy business. It's being run by another generation. This guy knows business. He knows what needs to be done to get the job done. And he and I were talking yesterday, and he said, the secret to all this, and I'm paraphrasing, term limits. It's time to send people to Juneau for maybe 2 sessions, and then they come home. And I thought he made a really good point. He said, it should be a hardship. And that's put in a loving way. In other words, it shouldn't be something where you go to get fat. It isn't something where you go into service, be it statewide, borough, city, national, become an international ambassador. It's not something you do and take up to fatten your own purse. And it's something you do as a sacrifice for the betterment of your country, something that which you believe in, a constitution that is greater than any one individual, but is protective of all individuals as individuals. You go and you sacrifice, and then you come home and you go back to the farm. You go back to your fishing boat. You go back to your business. You go back to your job. You go back to your accountancy. You go back to doing whatever it is that you do. And you're not a consistent politician. I mean, it's time. I agree 100%. And I've been talking about term limits, and that's what really got me when President Murphy of the Borough Assembly and Assemblyman Smith and Assemblyman Smalley got together and said, you know what? I know what the people said, but they're a bunch of idiots. And I'm paraphrasing again. What a bunch of morons. Yeah, they voted repeatedly for term limits here at the Borough Assembly, but those jokers didn't know what's going on. Do you know how hard it is to even understand an ordinance, let alone the function of Robert's Rules of Order? I mean, do you even know what it takes? And so they tried to snooker you at the ballot box into either repealing your own imposed term limits on them, or if not to repeal it, please, for the love of God, would you just give me one more term? Can I have 3 instead of 2? And I don't appreciate that at all. It's time to take the same initiative to your local city council and your statewide offices, representative and senators. And I'm sorry, it's time. And if we can do it here, then possibly we can take it all the way back to Washington, D.C. So Anchor Point Natural Foods brings us the way. We're calling it the third alternative. I propose that you and I can solve local issues, borough-wide, statewide, and national issues by applying this third alternative. We're going to talk about sales tax. We're going to talk about ignoring the populace. I have a great segment out of What the File. That's right, WTF, What the File. The blunt truth, pun intended, about Obama and marijuana. And in business, we're going to talk about who's responsible for the 200 million people out of work. Don't go anywhere, folks. Stay tuned to Alaska Matters. My mom calls it the greatest show on earth. In fact, I am Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures in the Last Frontier. Thank you for joining me today. If you miss any portion of this program, go to our website. It's a fantastic website, getting better every day, by the way, AlaskaMattersRadio.com. AlaskaMattersRadio.com. You can go there and hear this radio broadcast today. You can go there and hear past broadcasts, and you can listen to, Chris Story on Top of the World, our new 1-minute features. You can read my blog. I've got, I've got one there that I think, if Governor Christie could just read it, or anybody that want to enter into public sector service would read that, tell me where I'm wrong. So if you go to AlaskaMattersRadio.com and just reading Chris's blog, and it's called The Bridge Over Troubled Water. Where am I wrong? Public sector service is an honor. It's something that I think should never be lost. The idea, and it's reciprocal, we appreciate and they respect that it's your money. Like, for example, here in Homer, Alaska, we have an engineer who is our, public works director. He's an engineer. That's the degree, engineer. And instead of using his own 2 eyes and looking at a proposed trail and saying it's too steep, it won't work, what the council had tasked him to do here in Homer, it won't work. And instead of using his own 2 eyes and giving that feedback, we spent $17,500 surveying an alternate route, which was not at all what the city wanted, and that money's just gone. And I say, wait a minute. If that was your money and you had to reimburse it, you would have just said, you know what, I'm going to regroup. And somebody, when I was telling this story once before, somebody said to me, well, he already had the engineering firm and the surveyors here from Soldana. What could he have done? And I said, buy him a cup of coffee, a hamburger, and hit the road, folks. Sorry. Maybe you looked at the situation before they even got hired, looked at the situation before they even came down here. I mean, there's a lot of ways that we together can protect our property, which is both private and our monies, our monetary property. All right, here's 7 things you should never, ever say to a dog owner. This is interesting. You know, I'm 41 years old now, and as I get older, every day that I get older, I think I'm getting wiser. I think, anyway. It sure feels like it. And I looked at these dogs. Now, I told you before, I'm watching my father-in-law's Dachshund, or as erudite say, Dachshunds. And I don't. I say Dachshund, and that's, I think, we'll leave it at that. And then we've got our Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, which I do say like that. A Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. Little Cooper, and he deserves that. He deserves to be treated like royalty. Anyway, I never would have appreciated this until Cooper came into my life. And I've always had dogs since I was a kid. Always had dogs, always had a strong relationship with animals. My grandfather, Art Kohler, was an animal man. He had horses, donkeys, dogs, always a strong advocate of animal rights and just respect for animals. My father, Norm, he grew up on a farm and a what do you call it, like a ranch, like a working dude ranch. So, I mean, they had cattle, they had dogs, family dogs, working dogs. Always had a very, very healthy respect for pets and animals and treated them with kindness, except I never really understood when you see somebody that's got a different kind of relationship with their dog, they almost treat it like a person. I never understood that. I was like, well, that's weird. And then I met Cooper, and Cooper stole my heart. I'm going to be honest about that. He stole my heart. 7 things you should never say to a dog owner. Number 1, you have dogs because you don't have kids, right? Number 2, oh, your dog died. Well, get another one. Ooh, you insensitive. Who would say that? How did this even become a story on Yahoo News? Number 3, dogs shouldn't be allowed on the furniture or bed. What? Or maybe some people shouldn't be allowed on the furniture. Come on, dogs can get up on your couch all they want, and cats too. And I'm not even a cat person, and I don't understand cat people, to be honest with you. Number 4, that dog doesn't understand what you're saying. Yes, my dog does. Cooper understands what you and I are talking about right now. If the radio was on in the room where Cooper is, and I hope it is, he would understand exactly what I'm talking about. Number 5, that dog should be put down. He's costing you too much money. No. I will spend what it takes to keep that little Cooper alive. Now, that's not something I understood before. You know, people have pet insurance. People will spend money on surgeries and so forth. I say, great. Do what makes you... They're like little people. Now I'm just sounding like a freak. Number 6, you shouldn't let that dog kiss you. I'm kind of still in that camp. I'm kind of still like, you know, my tongue is in my mouth, Cooper. Your tongue is in yours. There they shall stay. Number 7, you're welcome, but your dog is not. Not cool. Not cool. Now, this is a story out of China. We were talking about communist China. Let me have some Blackwater Bend Espresso. Oh, thank you, Pat. That's the best coffee on earth. So, have you seen that story about the big screens in China where they've got, I mean, this was like a Jumbotron. It is like, I don't know, 100-foot long television screen, 30-foot high, huge Jumbotrons. You go to theblaze.com, it's like one of their front stories. It's all over the internet. Now some left-wing media types have picked it up as well. And when I saw that, I saw Upworthy or some of these other total leftist, lunatic-type sites picking it up. I thought, okay, how long before that's America's fault? How long before it's your fault that the air quality in China is so bad? How bad is it? It's so bad that they can't even see the sunset or rise. They have these massive screens connected to what they call sky cams, and they will display, and you can stand in front of this massive screen and watch the sunset or rise. It's incredibly horrific to think that their air quality is so awful and so horrible, but it's their own fault. The Chinese are doing it to themselves, and we're edging ever closer to a communist way of life. So may we also be looking at sky cams in the not-distant future? I don't know. But I said, okay. And I told Tiffany, I said, it's just a matter of time before this becomes America's fault. And then today, on Facebook, a friend shared the story from one of these leftist sites, and here's the text. I'm not going to tell you a name, but I read you the text. Again, it's the big screens in China. This is extraordinarily sad. And China is where the coal from proposed Chihuahua mines southwest of Anchorage would likely go. So profits can pour into the pockets of Texas investors. We get back the mercury and other pollutants that find their way into the ocean and air currents blowing east out of China. It's not our fault. We clean up our messes. We make a mess, we clean it up. We put scrubbers on the emissions of coal plants. We invent products like the Haley Clean Coal Plant. I know it wasn't perfect, and there was a lot of replacement parts, and there was things that were inadequate in the design to begin with, but our goal was for a clean-fired plant. They don't care about that in China. They don't care about that in Russia, in Georgia, and the Balkan states. They don't care about the resources and how they extract them. America does. We do. We're the best. I do believe in American exceptionalism, and I will argue that with anybody. But that's not to say that I don't appreciate other cultures. In fact, since I started taking pottery again, Carl Weiss has got a pottery class here at the community college, and I'm taking it with Zoe. And I'm rediscovering my love of the Eastern culture, and Japan specifically. I will be, in the next 2 years, going to Japan and visiting a little village. Well, actually, it's a large village, but it's Mishiko, Japan, so pottery village. I will be going there, and I will be walking where Soji Hamada once walked and made pottery, and I think he still has family alive there, so I will be doing that in the next couple of years. So I definitely don't classify me as a xenophobe. I definitely love other cultures, but American exceptionalism, it's the best. Blackwater Bend Espresso, here's your question. This is your final time to enter. If you have not entered to win the Blackwater Bend Espresso Alaskan Mind Bender, forget it. If this is your last call, 299-7653. Text your name and answer. Here's the question. What is the lowest temperature recorded in Alaska? -50, -80, or -100? Nerds out there, extra credit if you know when and where and all that good stuff. 299-7653. We're going to be talking about the third alternative when we return to Alaska Matters Radio. Hey, worst case, you land among the stars, right? Shoot for the moon, you land among the stars if you miss. That's our motto here on Alaska Matters Radio. I'm Christopher Story. David Webb, your producer and engineer of the program, broadcasting today live from the mothership of KPEN 102 FM. Miss any portion of the program, go to our website, AlaskaMattersRadio.com, AlaskaMattersRadio.com. Got a text message. I want to read a portion of it to you. Hey, Chris, had a conversation with a friend about term limits and the excuses of our elected officials. They seem to always go back to experience as the reason not to impose term limits. I agree, and this is not the only reason I'm reading this text message to you. I can't read them all, but I'm reading this one because he says he agrees with me. I agree with you in the idea that public service should be a burden, much like jury duty. It should be a duty rather than a career. New people constantly moving through public office would help with bigger issues rather than focus on petty new laws and such. Great point. Ryan, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that perspective. That's exactly the point. And here's the thing that I object to. I could be president of the United States of America. I really could. So could you. You know what it takes? Willingness to serve and understanding that you live in the greatest country on the face of the earth, a willingness to not only put your life on the line to protect it, that being the Constitution and this great way of life, but your brothers, sisters, neighbors, fathers, daughters, everybody. And willingness to have the strength of character and the spine to send others into harm's way, knowing that you're only doing it for the benefit of protecting individualism and this great American experiment and protecting and saving lives. Can you imagine if Barack Hussein Obama had been president during World War II? Think about that. You and I wouldn't have freedom of speech that I'm exercising right now. I don't even know that we'd have freedom of thought. We for darn sure wouldn't have freedom of religion. We wouldn't have any freedoms. Honestly, I believe that. I'm not trying to be sensational. I honestly believe that Barack Obama doesn't have the moral character or fortitude to have fought that war correctly. That's my opinion. You can weigh in with yours. And I mentioned that I read Ryan's text message only because he agreed with me. That's not true. I read it because it's accurate. But if you'd like to weigh in and take me to task if I'm wrong, tell me. I'm fine with discussion and debate. Don't have the ability right now to put you on air, but you can text message 299-7653. Our Blackwater Bend Espresso Mind Bender question is closed. We'll be answering we're giving you the answer and discussing that and announcing the winners in a moment. Anchor Point Natural Foods brings you this section. We're calling it the third alternative, or the way. Doesn't that sound mystical, sort of? The way. Brought to you by Anchor Point Natural Foods. Speaking of Anchor Point Natural Foods, if you're not already friended a friend of theirs on Facebook, go to Facebook, type in Anchor Point Natural Foods. Like them, follow them. They don't spam you. What Tara and Len do is let you know when the fresh kale is in, when the fresh organic produce is in, when the farm fresh eggs, never to have been touched by any chemicals or any GMO feed even. These things are so organic. The eggs are practically clucking. But they want to be fried. They want to be scrambled and cooked. That's how fresh and organic these eggs are. They just got a batch in yesterday. How do I know that? Because I'm friends with them on Facebook. And so should you be. Anchor Point Natural Foods on Facebook. Okay, by the way, they're located at 345 Sterling Highway next to N-Star and the Pho and Thai restaurant, as my mom calls it, Pho and Thai restaurant. It's actually Thai. If you run into Lynn's story somewhere, anywhere in life, just let her know. Say, Lynn, it's actually pronounced Thai, not Thai. We'd appreciate that. So here's the way. The way is essentially, there's your way, there's my way, and there's the third way, or the third alternative, and we're calling it the way. So I was reading Stephen Covey's book this morning. It's his final work. It's called The Third Alternative. So once again, I don't claim any ownership to this concept or idea, but I do want to take it, extrapolate some of its usefulness, and apply it to some issues that you and I can agree on. So, by the way, if you haven't read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, do it. If you haven't read The 8th Habit, do it. And if you haven't read The Third Alternative, get that book as well. I'll get off my high horse, but those 3 books that Stephen Covey wrote are life-changing. Pick any one of them. They will change the way you look at the world, and not from a pragmatic standpoint, not from a ideological standpoint. He's not going to convert you from left to right, or from. But you know what he will do? He's take you out of neutral, and you'll start to look at the world a little differently. And so solutions, he says in his book, The Third Alternative, are not unilateral but are multilateral. So let's just take a couple of these. Let's start with the borough-wide issue, the Anadromous Streams Ordinance, 2011-12. What was the answer from the Kenai Peninsula Borough and Mayor Mike Navarre? Take away rights of private property owners for 50 feet of their property. What was my way? I mean, maybe I didn't have it all right. Maybe I had it wrong. My way was leave private property owners alone unless you have proof of their habitat degradation. That was my way. So the borough's way was take the property rights. My way was leave us alone, don't touch us. What about another way? What if there was another alternative that wasn't explored at all? I know Mayor Navarre gave you a 9-month task force. That's about the time that it takes to gestate nothing. To basically matriculate something through a task force like that for 9 months was an absolute farce, and he knew it. And I asked him, just simply get behind repealing this bad law and start over if need be. Well, what could have been a third alternative? What would have been a third way that Mayor Mike Navarre could have handled this? How about proposing, 1, repeal the law that prohibited due process, nobody was notified, and 2, restrict embankment degradation by requiring a permit to tamper, work, or otherwise destroy the river lake bank. Literally the bank. I'm talking about doing something at the water's edge. I could have gotten behind requiring a permit to do that. I think a lot of people could have. If you're really trying to restore habitat, fine. Apply for a permit, so on. But 50 feet of the property? No, that was wrong. And here's the irony of it all. The state, all the while this argument's going on and the task force is going on, et cetera, there's a predetermined what was going to happen. That's why I call it a farce. It was predetermined. We knew the outcome. So what else was going on at that time? The state of Alaska Fish and Game, and this is not an indictment of the Fish and Game, but they were dumping retinol or proposing to dump retinol, and then did dump a known carcinogen into lakes, streams, and ponds to eradicate pike. To eradicate one species, they used a chemical so toxic that it's labeled a carcinogen. But don't worry about it. They were controlling the levels by which it was being introduced into your freshwater streams and your salmon streams and so forth. And besides of which, if it ended up migrating all the way to the Kenai River and the levels that being tested in the Kenai River were too great, don't worry. There was another chemical they could have dumped in to neutralize that chemical reaction. So it's blowing my mind. I'm watching all this and I'm saying, wait a minute. The borough is just absolutely wrong on this. The borough assembly, the mayor, just absolutely wrong. And they were saying, people like Story and the Realtor Associations are just a bunch of greedy hypocrites and don't care about salmon habitat, and they got the cook and the keeper involved. They got everybody involved, and all of a sudden nobody was actually looking for a third alternative. And I think I found it, and it could have been just simply to restrict what happens at the water's edge. Oh, how hard would that have been? That would have been easy. That would have been easy. Again, we're talking about finding an alternative. Let's apply it to healthcare. Let's broaden the conversation. Let's apply it to healthcare and or Obamacare. So Obama's solution, socialized medicine, require every man, woman, and child to purchase a product or pay a fine or a tax for the benefit of all, because we don't trust you. We don't trust you to make your own decisions as it pertains to healthcare. So socialization is the answer according to Obama and Mark Begich. My answer, and a lot of you, and a lot of individualists versus collectivists, we said let each person determine their own insurance needs and their own health care plans. It's called personal responsibility and individualism. There's private charity. There really is already. I just did not see a need at all for Obamacare. And I'm speaking from somebody who had catastrophic insurance only, and now I'm losing that. Oh, okay, fine. Clearly, I can't be objective. Neither could Obama. We both wanted our own way. What if there was another way? What if we could have reformed tax laws that favor individual health savings plans with pre-tax dollars? Empower the individual to choose where and when and how they purchase insurance across state lines. And what if we implemented some sort of tort reform to help reduce frivolous lawsuits? And encourage, through tax benefits, encourage private charity, and empower doctors to do their job with this little bureaucracy between you and the doctor, between the patient and the doctor. Empower people as individuals. That's a nice third alternative. Of course, this, fundamental is you being personally responsible for your own health. That's all part of it. But that could have been another plank of this third alternative, is to encourage that. Not mandate it, but encourage. How does this apply to non-prepared food sales tax? And who won the Blackwater Bend Espresso Alaskan Mind Bender? You'll find out here on Alaska Matters Radio. Welcome back to Alaska Matters Radio. I'm Christopher Story. I want to thank Pat and everybody out of Blackwater Bend Espresso. And I also want to congratulate Laura and Mitchell. Laura and Mitchell are going to Blackwater Bend Espresso for free because they knew the lowest temperature recorded in Alaska was minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit at Prospect Creek in 1970. And now I feel a little bit like a jerk. Remember I was making fun of the people who sat in the front of the class earlier, and I was saying something about they got the extra credit points wrong? I actually was reading it wrong myself. It was in 1971. I was looking above, at the line above where it says the highest temperature recorded in Alaska was 100 degrees above in 1915, Fort Yukon. See, I had it backwards in my head. I thought that the lowest was in 1915, but that was actually 1971, lowest temperature on record, minus 80 degrees. And then in 1915, 100 degrees up at Fort Yukon. I wonder if there was an Al Gore equivalent in 1915 running around. Wait a minute, got to get into Al Gore. We've got a crisis here. The temperatures are so low. And trying to make millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars on some sort of manufactured fear. Blackwater Bend Espresso, thank you so much, everybody who participated. We literally, I've never had this many respondents to the trivia contest. It wasn't easy, but Laura and Mitchell, you were our random winners. Also, just one note, tomorrow is when a lot of you would expect Radio Realty to take place. Well, remember, it's Thursdays now, as you just heard on that promo. Thursdays, Radio Realty. And tomorrow, though, anybody in the Homer Anchor Point area interested will be hosting a Kachemak Board of Realtors meeting. Ken Kastner is our guest, and he's going to be talking about home rule. Home rule. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. You for it? You against it? Don't know much about it? Come out to the Badarka at 12 o'clock and hear Ken Kastner, the Best Western Badarka, 12 o'clock. Hear Ken Kastner addressing the good points, the bad points, the indifferent points about home rule. What's the process, and why is he petitioning for home rule? Maybe you'll think it's a good idea. Sales tax on that. One quick other program note. Let's see here. Dan Metke, Officer Dan Metke, is with the Homer Volunteer Fire Department. He wants you to know there's an opportunity coming up in the Homer area to join emergency services. If you think you want to save a life, do you want to gain a new skill? Do you want a tax break for doing it? You actually get a tax break on your property for being a volunteer. Now's the time you can get involved. Here's how you get involved. You call Dan Metke at the Homer Volunteer Fire Department, 235-3155. They have a class coming up. It's not too late to join. You can jump in. It's Tuesday nights. You can join in, and in fact, I think the training goes on beyond that, but it's I think this is coming up Tuesday. You can get all the information anyway, but just call Dan. Don't take my word for it. Call Dan Metke, Officer Dan. He's called Fireman Dan. Great guy, 235-3155. That's coming up real quick. And also, Greg Collins was going to be here, but we had some technical difficulties. Couldn't take any phone calls. And so Greg was going to call in as well and talk about Kachemak Emergency Services. They've got, I believe, on the 1st February, they likewise are doing some recruitment and training. So lots of opportunities to serve, get educated, and possibly save a life. All right, then we're talking about Anchor Point Natural Foods is bringing us the way. We're talking about sales tax on non-prepared foods. So there's the City Council way, the Mayor Wyeth way, the City Manager Walt Reedy way, and that is to repeal the winter exemption on your basic foodstuffs. So we have a People's Initiative that said we take a break from taxation in the wintertime on our non-prepared foods. And so the council and the mayor and the city manager in Homer want to repeal that exemption. Well, here's my way. Allow the exemption to stand. That's my way. That's the alternative way that I would propose. No. Leave it alone. Let the exemption stand as it exists. Then there's a third alternative that's being proposed by a lot of people in the Homer area. Tax-free food is a basic civil right. Exempt non-prepared food sales tax year-round. So that may be the solution that comes out of this conversation, is that rather than worry about an exemption period, rather than worry about keeping track of it, coming in and out of the shoulder seasons, it's difficult for stores and merchants to keep track of it, and it's just too tempting to keep wanting to reach back in and grab that exempt money. They call it a missing million. Even though it's in your pocket, the powers that be call it a missing million. Well, the third alternative, or the way, may actually be to repeal sales tax on non-prepared foods on a year-round basis. If you grew up in the Cold War, you can relate to what I'm about to tell you. Can you imagine ever reading something that was stated and quoted by Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, and going, man, that guy really makes sense? And then reading something written by your own president in an interview in the New Yorker and going, what is he talking about? I'm looking at this, and I'm going to post this to our website, AlaskaMattersRadio.com. It's called The Blunt Truth, pun intended, blunt. If you, Urban Dictionary, you can look up blunt. And then the president of Russia, talking about how he stays in shape. President of the United States talking about how marijuana is not a bad deal. No, marijuana's not that bad. What? I don't know what to say. I'm thinking Red Dawn stuff here. What happened? What happened? What country did I wake up in? Thank you for being here on what my mom calls the greatest show on earth. I'm Christopher Story. For Dave Webb and myself, I'm asking you to go out into the great land and make a great day for yourself.